Do you know what? I'll jump in. It's a really idea.
Hello, Mark.
Hi, Gabby. In a moment, we're going to talk Men's World Cup with the Athletics' Adam Crafton. But I cannot believe that, bearing in mind how this podcast has been for 2 years when it has come to talking about the NFL for me and my team, Chicago, that I sit here this morning, Gabby, and they are the number 1 seed on their half of the draw in the NFC. And they have gone from being an shambles to somehow, there are still 5 games to go, to be in the number number 1 seed in the.
So we're talking Super Bowl potentially. This is
absolutely. So if you are the number 1 seed you have 2 conferences, NFC and AFC. If you're the number 1 seed, basically the playoffs go through your home ground, i.e. as long as you stay in all the way until the Super Bowl, you get home advantage and you get a bye in the
Super
first
Bowl
round.
Next year.
The Super Bowl is in Santa Clara, so just where San Francisco plays.
Nice.
So where they had Super Bowl 50. So it is
cold in February.
I'm not getting ahead of myself. But it has been a long time since this has happened. And we talk about leadership and we talk about coaching. And this is down to their new head coach. And I'm only mentioning this because the team will probably find the clip and put it on social media. But Ben Johnson, like one of the kind of brightest young coaches when he was at Detroit. So Chicago hired him for a lot of money. He is such a leader of men. And there is a restaurant in Chicago that offered free hot dogs depending on whether one of 3 things happened, and there was a poll, and the poll was if Ben Johnson, the Chicago head coach, takes his shirt off post-match. So the shot in the dressing room, he takes his shirt off, he is ripped, he is there with all his players shouting, chanting, the sheer joy just comes through.
Good, better, bad. Good, better, bad. Never let it rest. Never let it rest. It's good, get better. It's good, get better. It better get better. It better get better. There's on 3, 1, 2, 3.
Well, let's hope that's not the peak of your joy. Where'd you go from there?
Well, yeah, I know. But just let me enjoy it.
Okay.
Like this week, we'll probably go to the Green Bay Packers and lose at the weekend. But this week, it's just...
And United came back against Palace.
Yeah, another weekend where Chicago and United both win. We'll ignore Sale on Friday night against Exeter.
20-point lead thrown down.
Yeah,
extraordinary. Yeah. I mean, suddenly people are saying Exeter are the team to tip this season. Well, it would appear so after that. But that was a capitulation. That was disappointing.
Well, that's brought me back down to earth, hasn't it?
So last week we had McLaren's CEO, Zach Brown, on the podcast. And, of course, this was all ahead of the penultimate race of the season, in which Lando Norris could have secured the title. And Max Verstappen, as we know, will take any little chink of light, any slight opening of a door. And this is exactly what Zach Brown said on the podcast last week.
He's like that guy in that horror movie that right as you think he's not coming back, he's back.
You can call me Chucky. Is that short enough for you? Well, I don't know. I mean, I saw it as well. I thought it was quite funny.
So there you go. He listens to the sports agents.
Max Verstappen listens to the sports agents and watches our clips. And now we're down to, he is very much in that rear view mirror.
Yeah,
isn't
going
he?
down to the final race of the season where 3 drivers could win this for the first time in 15 years. They messed up their strategy again, and they didn't put...
They didn't pit, did they, when the safety car came out?
When the safety car came out, everybody else pitted. They didn't, and obviously it's cost them. But the interesting thing was Zach Brown talked about mistakes from the disqualification in Las Vegas, didn't he, on the podcast? And when I heard that about them being the only team not to do that, I was like, that's bad.
Look, I am not massively up on my F1 as we have
copy the
discussed
rest.
before. but as I understand it, one of the reasons why they might not have done that, and I'm sure if I get this wrong, somebody will correct me, is because of the papaya rules that we talked to him about.
Fair
If they were
competition.
going to bring them in, they'd have had to have decided which one came in first,
Therefore, which one left first?
and therefore, yeah. I mean,
Well, surely
I
you
think
bring the
that,
one in that's in the lead, at that point, out of the two, don't you? And
but in the lead in the race or in the lead in the championship, I think that's where they've got themselves into
a bit of a model.
and much as we applauded it when talking to him, and we do, and you do like that idea, don't you? Of completely fair racing, no team orders, head to head. It's down to you guys.
I
We'll
wonder,
give you
though-
both the best possible chance. In a situation like this, it's cost them both, I suppose.
But have a conversation about potential eventual outcomes. What do you two think about that happening in the race? Would you two want to be going in it as you are, or do we bring you in
Yeah.
together and then the one that's in the lead in the race? I don't know. I mean, sometimes
And I've seen some articles this week where they've gone, now they do have to. They have to go, this is everything all in on Norris,
but as
to make sure he holds that lead. But
we put to Zach Brown last week,
They won't,
it's
will they?
all just worked out beautifully, hasn't it, for the spectacle of the sport. And we started the season talking about competition and needing that competition. I think the back end of last season as well. And here we are with 3 drivers potentially going to win or could win the whole championship.
the full interview is Zach on YouTube, Global Player, or wherever you get your podcasts. Max, if you're listening, obviously I don't need to tell you that you've managed
Always
to
leaving
do
things
that.
in the show notes as well.
Yeah, he loves a Google form, doesn't he? He's filled them in many a time for us. Just want to end this little bit with just before we started recording this, it was announced that Robin Smith, former England cricketer, has died at the age of 62, and he was just one of those, growing up for me, Gabby, just one of those iconic England cricketers. As soon as you for me, I hear the name Robin Smith, I just envisage him with a square cut, crashing that ball through the covers, on his tiptoes, taking on the fast bowling. He was such an entertainer and such a powerful man. For many years, he had the highest England score in a one-day international. I think it was Alex Hales that eventually beat that. He played his whole career for Hampshire, but he was such a big part of that England middle order when I was growing up, and such an entertaining man to watch. And I was very lucky enough to interview him a few years ago. He had some struggles in his life, in later life, and I met him, and he was just the kindest, gentlest, nicest man. The complete contrast to the real power of the man as a cricketer. But he provided such entertainment for those of us who loved cricket at that time. So it's sad that he has gone at the age of 62.
Nice words, Mark. Get in touch, the sports agents at global.com, on email, messages on social media, or via the link in the episode description. And make sure you hit subscribe and follow so you never miss an episode. And you can leave us a review as well if you like.
Up next, it's the Athletics' Adam Crafton to look ahead to the Men's World Cup. This will be fun. The draw is later this week.
I'm delighted to say that the Athletics' Adam Crafton is joining us from New York to talk all things World Cup draw and beyond. There is so much to get into here. We are mired in politics. We'll get onto that in a minute. But we want to talk first, Adam, about the actual kind of logistics of the draw, and how it's all going to work and what's different and how long it's going to take. A day? 2 days?
Do you know what's funny? We were talking about, there's a group of us from the Athletic who will be there over the next few days, and people were talking about what we were going to do on Friday night. And I was like, you think this thing is going to be finished by Friday night? We'll just be getting started by the time all the prizes have been given out. So unclear how long it will last, but I would imagine as a FIFA adventure, it will be a good few hours.
Who's involved? Who's involved in the draw?
A lot still to be announced. I think it's fair to say, obviously the FIFA president will be involved. There will be the usual kind of catalogue of ex-players / legends who will be there. President Trump has previously said that he will be involved. I don't know if you remember last year at the Club World Cup draw, Trump was still to actually start his new term, but they still had his daughter Ivanka and his grandson Theo making the ceremonial first pick of the Club World Cup draw. So God knows what we're in for on Friday from that perspective. I think there will be some live music. Chappers might be old enough to remember 1994 or 1993 draw it would have been, wouldn't it, if it was for 1994, where there was all sorts of acts. I think Stevie Wonder played.
Did he?
At that
What, played the draw in 90? I genuinely, I don't.
I think so. Robin Williams was there. He was involved. It was a bit of a star-studded occasion. I don't know if they'll get as many kind of big names to come out this time. So clearly it's going to be a bit all singing or dancing. What's interesting is like a lot of the host cities wanted it to be in Las Vegas initially, and those talks went a really, really long way. And then a decree came from the White House saying, no, we'd like it at the Kennedy Center, which is a center that Trump has kind of taken over with his allies since coming back into power.
In Washington.
In Washington, D.C., yeah. It's a performing arts venue named after JFK. There have been moves to rename it as the Trump Kennedy Center. Some of this all sounds a bit like satire at times, but it's true.
Well, the other thing with that is, just to go slightly off subject, is the Washington Commanders NFL team are looking at building a new ground for them, and the permission to build it is likely to come from the president. And now there are discussions about whether the new Washington Commanders ground will be named Trump Stadium or whatever. So there are a few places in Washington that could have his name attached to them. That's a bit of a side story, but
no. I mean, it's
he's going to be all over it.
It's certainly a twist.
He's going to be all over
there.
this draw.
He's going to be there.
He's going to be. This draw, though, is complicated through no fault of his. There's lots of things we could talk about with FIFA's relationship with Trump, but this is going to be a complicated draw because of FIFA's decision to expand this tournament and hold it in 3 different countries. So place in Mexico and Canada and the United States, and where they're going to play their games, and on top of that, introducing another seeding system as opposed to just having pot 1, pot 2, pot 3 and pot 4. The top 4 nations in the world are going to be seeded like a Wimbledon draw, so that they can't face each other as long as they win their group. That's right, they can't face each other until the semi-finals. Is that how that bit works?
As far as I know. Thank you for explaining it so that I didn't need to. That is
Argentina, Spain, France, and England.
Yeah, which is maybe good news if you are those countries. I think maybe it's designed to maximise broadcast proposition in theory. You get the biggest matchups later in the competition. I think there's the risk is that you get kind of slightly duller earlier games. I think what I would say is that...
Do you know what? I'll jump in. It's shit. It's a really shit idea. Okay, and I'll tell you why. Because you go back, I know you don't remember 1993, Adam, but me and Gabby will remember good God, 1982. The best group ever at a World Cup, when they had a second stage group at a World Cup in 82, had Argentina, Brazil and Italy in the same group of 3, and they played each other in some of the best games a World Cup has seen. And sometimes, do you not think, Gabby,
because
you want a big game
especially
early?
Now with 48 teams, you are going to get some absolutely, let's call them unattractive propositions popping up. The games that, when they come out of the hat for us to present, we'll be accidentally dropping them on the floor and giving them to somebody else because they're not going to be the ones that you want to kind of...
We'll give them Kelly. Is that what you're saying?
She's not here, so yes. Okay. So there are going to be those games.
So who's doing the opening game then?
We don't know anything yet in terms of...
We don't know
So what
anything.
happens is the draw from a broadcast point of view, I mean, you probably already know this, Adam, but anybody that doesn't, ITV and BBC obviously split the World Cup between them. And they've already decided certain things because they do that in advance about, kind of potentially England's route through and where they would, which quarterfinal and which semi-final. However, they don't know the full package yet. And so they'll sit down in a dark room and they'll just hammer out and debate until they're all happy with the games that they're doing. And then they'll come to us and dish them out.
Yeah. Shall I tell the story? Shall I tell? So each tournament it alternates, doesn't it, Gabby? Who gets first pick, either ITV or BBC? But that was decided a few tournaments ago with the toss of a coin. But the two heads of sport or heads of football at the time tossed that coin, and then whoever tossed it dropped it, and it rolled under a radiator in the room. So the whole order of how people have picked was decided by the two heads having to scrabble under a radiator. That's right, isn't
there's
it?
Another great
side...
toin tossing story. I thought you were going to tell the Gary Newborn one when he was doing the England reporter's role for ITV and Garth Crooks for the BBC. And I'm pretty sure it was Gary who was late, and they were deciding who was interviewing the manager first. I think it was Terry Venables, and they tossed without him, and Gary ran up and said, "I'm the number one tosser," and it might have been Garth. Sorry, Gary, forgot it the wrong way around. But anyway, tossing aside, I mean, we really should. It'd be a lot easier, wouldn't it, if these groups were decided with the toss of a coin? So the next day, once this draw's happened, Adam, the next day is when the venues are then decided. That we won't know for at least 24 hours, will we, where these matches are being played?
Yeah, I think we know roughly, don't we, the groups, as in which cities the groups are.
Yeah.
I think. And a lot of them are kind of bunched together. So I don't think you're going to get a situation where it's like there's a game in Boston and then a game in Guadalajara. And
right,
then
so we know where they are, but not what times they are, depending on...
Exactly.
Right,
as kickoff times will be determined on Saturday, where there was an announcement actually from FIFA yesterday that Gianni and a cast of ex-legends will be analysing all of the games on Saturday morning. So tune in for that one.
Yeah.
Don't miss that. It's really interesting, though, what you say about some of those sorts of slightly slower early games, because the way that the ticketing has worked here, and that's kind of a whole other story, but I've got sort of a friend here in the States who I think they got 12 to 13 tickets in total between him and different family members and friends. And they've got, I think, some games in Kansas, some games in New York, some games in LA, and they're almost trying to make a decision before the draw as to, because it's this like dynamic value on the resale, they're kind of worried that, well, if there's a game in Kansas that is between two nations that aren't particularly appealing for neutrals, the value of these tickets that I've just paid a fortune for could absolutely plummet.
Gosh.
And I'll still might want to go to the New York or LA ones. So I think that kind of whole resale market might be quite fascinating over the next couple of days.
Should we get into the politics, chappers?
Yeah, is there a everything feels like it can move at the moment, Adam, doesn't it though, with this World Cup? And a decree may come in here, or a rule may come in here, or a whim may have to be satisfied here. That's what it feels like from afar. In the thick of it in the States, is that exactly the same feeling?
Oh, word this. There's definitely a sense of unpredictability. There's a sense that outside events may have a significant impact on the tone and tenor of the tournament. Even last week, obviously the awful shooting that happened in DC of the members of the National Guard, but the response to that has been so strong from the Trump administration, where last night you have kind of the Secretary of State for Homeland Security kind of just going on Twitter saying that had a meeting with the president and they want even bigger travel bans. Now, if I'm FIFA and I'm hearing more talk about travel bans, that's not really what FIFA want to hear.
Well, you've already got countries who've qualified are not allowed in the country, Haiti being one of them. So Iran being another. So we've got countries who have qualified being told they're not going to get visas anyway. Some countries, it can take up to a year to get a visa potentially. So, well, that ship sailed for them, hasn't it? If they haven't already applied. And then you've got, as Mark alluded to there, the whims of Trump in terms of, deciding that Seattle and and its mayor or its governor is too liberal, and maybe it's time to move Seattle as a venue. And Mark made a great point before that if this was another country, would we not be being more critical about that regime being so dictatorial in the way it's kind of overpowering this World Cup and the way it's organised?
I think we probably would be, and I think there's a few sort of caveats to that. One is that, like if you take Qatar, like the difference between Qatar and America is America obsessively talks about itself, right? It scrutinizes itself. It's not like there isn't journalists doing journalism about what Donald Trump is doing, which is, I think, different to a Qatar or a Russia. Now, it doesn't mean that everything that's happening is right or wrong or whatever, but I do think that's a difference. The second point is, FIFA have this very weird relationship with the Trump administration where they are kind of getting some of what they want. And so, the thing that you just mentioned about the wait times for a visa appointment. So if I'm a tourist from Colombia or Morocco or Turkey, I know Turkey haven't qualified yet, and I'm trying to get a visa, some of the wait times can be like up to a year, as you said. But FIFA, over the past couple of weeks, have got what is a pretty big concession in the context of this administration, which is basically, if you have a FIFA ticket for the World Cup, we will expedite you an appointment. Now, that doesn't guarantee you get in, and there's still all the same extremely stringent vetting that's going on at the moment, including of social media and all of that kind of stuff. And I think if you are a young man seeking to travel for a short time to the United States from certain countries, it's going to be a challenge in a 2-minute interview to persuade consulate officers that you don't intend to overstay and things like that. So it's not going to be easy. But that is significant. There is also a 625 million federal funding commitment for security that FIFA managed to get, along with host cities. So some of this stuff is like bare minimum stuff that host countries should be doing for these events, but they feel like extraordinary things within the administration. With regards to like relocating games, look, Trump says a lot of things during Oval Office news conferences. I don't think the host cities are taking those threats that seriously, but there is a danger that it dissuades people from traveling and getting involved and all the economic impacts.
There's an assumption, isn't there, when you talk about decisions happening on a whim, that that all goes one way, depending on what the president wants. For a lot of people in football, there is a feeling that FIFA are making it up as they go along, as well, to a certain extent. With the recent decision on Ronaldo being the most obvious, and there isn't anybody that I have talked to in football over the last week or so who doesn't seem to be absolutely. I mean, it might be slightly different for Gabby, because she was with.
I was going to say he seems fine with it.
Yeah, but in the main, there's a real fury actually at what they've done here.
Yeah, and I don't know why, because Portugal are a lot worse when he plays. So it should be the other way around.
Yes.
I think, I mean, it was really interesting because he came to the White House. I mean, that in itself was just this kind of extraordinary demonstration, this Ronaldo going to the White House, of what the world now seems to be, which is kind of just the richest men, the richest, most famous, most powerful men just hanging out in the White House, etc. And Ronaldo was there, MBS was there, Trump was there, Gianni was there. Gianni's always there. I think he might have his own room at this point. And he, I actually got a message from someone who knows people high up in the Portuguese Federation, and on the kind of the morning it was happening, saying, they think Ronaldo might think it's a good idea given the red card last week, and also just to kind of re-enter the States again, given some of the allegations that have previously been made around Ronaldo, where charges have never been brought. But as a result of that, I hesitated about writing about it, because first of all, it's kind of unprovable. Ronaldo goes to the White House to try and get out of a red card, and it just seems so ridiculous. And then within a few days, it's happened, and there is no evidence that the two things were linked. But if you are sitting in FIFA, you must surely have the awareness that this doesn't
We
look
also
great.
know how much Barron, Donald's son with Melania, loves soccer. He got Wayne Rooney when he was head coach at DC to go around and coach him personally, and we know that Donald attributes a lot of his success with the TikTok and Instagram community and the online community in terms of votes at the election to Barron, because Barron came up with his strategy apparently, which was do some stuff on podcasts. But anyway, he loves soccer, and you can imagine Donald as somebody who wants to be loved and pleased, please everybody in his kind of aura. If Barron says you've got to get this guy in because he's really important in world football, he'd do it, right? I mean, and I know it sounds idiotic saying a 19, 20-year-old can have that much influence on the World Cup, but it could be just as basic as that.
Yeah.
It could be. I mean, it's really funny. Often if I ever meet kind of owners of European football clubs in the States, it's amazing how often they will say the fact that their kids are into soccer is kind of one of the main reasons that they have ended up in there as well, in terms of, that kind of gateway to becoming interested in it. I think Trump's interest in the World Cup and in soccer is a bit more kind of basic even than simply, the Barron link. I think it's around two things. First of all, it's something he believes he can claim credit for because he was the president when they won the bid in 2018 in his first term. So it's something he says he's responsible for. And secondly, I think he sees the world through TV and he sees the world through ratings. And the World Cup has incredible billion multi-billion ratings.
And it also is going to earn him a Peace Prize, if we are to believe potentially what's being given out on Friday.
It's unconfirmed who will win the Peace Prize on Friday. However, it was announced.
The inaugural FIFA Peace Prize.
I was going to say, nobody else has ever won a FIFA Peace Prize, have they? Because it hasn't been a thing until now.
No. It was really funny because I was in Miami on November the 5th, which was the day of the America Business Forum, where Infantino was giving a speech or being interviewed on stage at where the Miami Heat play at the Kaseya Center, and Trump was giving a speech in the same conference on the same day. And all of a sudden, this release drops from Gianni's. I think Gabby's just boycotted the prize.
Yeah, she has. Yeah. We'll keep going. She had to be somewhere, but so we'll keep going. Yeah,
that's okay.
Yeah.
This was announced by Infantino on Instagram, and FIFA released it as well. And I don't think it was any coincidence at all that it was a day where Infantino was going to see Trump at the draw, was going to be speaking on the same stage. He's already said himself, Infantino, on Instagram, because he's always on Instagram, said that Trump deserved the Nobel Peace Prize, which obviously he missed out on. So I think everyone is expecting it, partially because it would be so embarrassing to have Trump in the room and give someone else a Peace Prize at this point. That would be like humiliating. So they almost now have to give him the Peace Prize. But I do think, it's going to be quite weird as an event, that you can have all these people from football in a room and you're giving the president a Peace Prize, whether people think that's deserved or otherwise.
It's so hard to sum up where we're at the moment, because there's one part of me that thinks ahead of this draw, everything between FIFA and the States is so intertwined at the moment. What else could come? What else will happen? But then I suppose history tells you over many years of doing these tournaments, this is how FIFA operate with host countries ahead of each event, isn't it? I mean, in many ways, much as there's all this attention on it, and it is Trump. I get that, and therefore that obviously escalates the attention. It has always been like this, really.
Yeah, I think Infantino's FIFA in particular has made it more like this. Look, I think FIFA came to the United States. First of all, they came late. So, they set up an office maybe 18 months ago or so in Miami. That was late, given when the draw was. And obviously you have COVID in between, but it felt like the planning and organization could have started earlier. I don't think the kind of public awareness, the national awareness of this World Cup is actually what it should be at in the United States either. The Club World Cup obviously experienced big challenges as well. I think the makeup of the states, where you have, you've got the federal government, states, cities, private donors, sports billionaires, stadium owners, makes it a particularly hard country to come in as a very rigid Swiss organization or Swiss-based organization and try and impose your framework. And they encounter a lot of resistance to that. A lot of people saying, why would we do things the way FIFA do it? We're America. We know how to put sports on. We do sports every week. We do Taylor Swift concerts
which
every
actually is, that is a positive. Actually, the number of discussions that we would have had over previous tournaments, FIFA come in, they seem to set their own rules on, tax, for example, when they're hosting it, when there is an event in the country, they expect everybody to do it their way. I mean, there is something actually quite refreshing about that attitude, I have to say.
There is, but actually what's happened is, I think, the host cities have signed themselves to extraordinarily burdensome contracts. FIFA kind of come in, they get all the ticketing revenue, the stadiums have to be clean of sponsorship. So, MetLife Stadium, as Americans will know it, will just be called World Cup Stadium New York, FIFA Stadium New York. The only things that host cities are allowed to sell are fan festival sponsorships, which for American host cities is pretty limited. All the security costs, policing costs, transportation costs are being swallowed by the host cities. Even the car park revenue is going to FIFA. So FIFA have done themselves an amazing deal. I think where you're going to see the pushback to this is actually for the 2031 World Cup. Because I think a lot of the host cities have been looking at this over the last couple of years, just being like, what the hell have we signed up to here? And, you get this argument around economic impact that the host cities and FIFA make, where they say, we're going to make 40 billion in the States during this tournament. It's all worth it. Even today, there's going to be a bill announced, presented to the House of Representatives, which is asking for another $50 million a year to go towards helping host cities with transport costs. A huge amount of American taxpayer dollars have already gone into making this happen. And I think what you're going to see for the Women's World Cup in 2031 is America basically asking FIFA, I think you can maybe put a bit more in as well.
Adam, thank you. I always appreciate talking to you right until the very end.
Thank you. Nice to speak to you, Gabby.
Bye.
The Sports Agents
with Gabby Logan and Mark Chapman.